Welcome back to the Mystery Garage. In last week's episode, actually the last two episodes, we started discussing my plans and goals for my Mk1 VR6. We talked about how I wanted to build it into a little bit more of a street and strip kind of dedicated drag car, and that's exactly what we got to work doing. Last week's episode, we test fit some slicks, minimized the interior, as well as bolted in a racing seat. We're going to continue down that direction, but I'm still waiting on parts right now, and just so you guys know, we are going through an extreme heat wave right now. It is very, very hot, so we're going to do something a little bit on the lighter side today. A little while ago, I received some parts for the Jetta that I really want to throw on. So today's the day to do that because it is far too hot to do anything else. So let's get to work. All right, welcome back to today's episode. And like I said, we are going through an extreme heat wave right now. I'm in Canada, so we talk about our temperature in Celsius. It's definitely north of 40 degrees. We're talking about between, anywhere between 38 and 44 or 45 degrees in today and the next day, at least next 2 days. So it is far too hot to get into anything really in depth. I'm kind of just sweating standing here. For you guys who are in the United States and talk about Fahrenheit, that's anywhere between 104 and 112 degrees Fahrenheit. So it is hot. It is ridiculously hot. And we don't necessarily have that kind of weather here because it's not, it does get warm, but we're not in a particularly dry climate. So when it gets hot, it gets sweaty hot, and it's too much to deal with. So today, like I said, I received some parts a while ago that I had for the Jetta. I even talked about some of them with you guys. I really want to focus on getting those on the car today. It is on the lighter side, so we'll make it a little bit easier in this heat. The Jetta's been parked out there for a while. It is pretty filthy, so I'm going to start off by just rinsing it off and washing the car off. We'll bring it into the shop and we'll show you the parts before we do that and show you guys what we're getting into, so let's do it. All right guys, here's what we got today. So I showed you guys a while back. I picked up the Euro front end from Bosnia actually. And then I actually recently just grabbed these from Mexico. So talk a little bit about the Mk1 Jetta. All right, so some of you who may not know a ton about the Mk1 Jetta, here's some really cool facts for you. Although the Mk1 Jetta sold really, really well here in the US and Canada, it was actually never produced in the US. It had 4 factories they were built, one in Germany, one in Yugoslavia, one in South Africa, and one in Mexico. And depending on where you live in the world, you got a slightly different variation of that platform. One of the biggest definitive factors of whether a car was built or for the North American market was it came with the 4 headlight grille. And that was only a requirement because of the legal requirements to get those cars on the streets in North America was different than it was in most other places of the world. So Volkswagen had to adapt by switching to the 4 headlight grille setup. Now the funny thing is whether you're in the European markets or you're in the North American markets, we always want the European stuff. Most European guys really want the North American stuff. So we're going to do exactly that today in the headlight setup. We're going to go with the Euro style front end and get rid of the North American style front end, which I prefer the Euro, hands down. 4 headlight thing isn't doing it for me. Some of you guys who love that stuff, hit me up. I will be selling that grille setup, the grille complete, as well as the headlights and bezels. Everything included, and mine setup is actually already an H4 setup with the separate non-sealed beams. So if you guys are interested in that, by all means, hit me up in the comments or hit me up on my Instagram at Mk1Build. Anyways, moving on, depending on where you are in the world too, they also came with different names. And this is where some of you guys have asked me before, why do I sometimes tag my videos with the words Atlantic or Fox? Gets a little confusing if you're watching this in North America because what we call a Fox is different from what they call in South Africa a Fox, because the Volkswagen Jetta in South Africa was actually sold as a Volkswagen Fox. The Volkswagen Fox to us in North America is actually a version of the Brazilian Gall sold here in North America slightly different, 2-door or 4-door, sometimes in a wagon. But our North American version of the Fox is a Brazilian version of their Gall. So again, a little bit confusing, but you can also find a Mk1 Jetta in the world labeled as a Fox. Also, to not confuse it even more, But in Mexico, the Mark 1 Jetta was sold as an Atlantic. So it was the Volkswagen Atlantic in the Mark 1 platform. So why I bring that up is those taillights, actually I shipped them in from Mexico because they were an option on the Mexican version of the VW Atlantic. So I'm putting Euro front end headlights on it, VW Atlantic taillights on it. So it's a pretty cool thing that you can get parts from all over the world, and they come a little bit differently. All right, so the last time we left off on the Jetta, we did some front end work, updating the front end and that sort of thing. So I want to carry on. We're going to do the whole headlight swap, grille swap. Like I said, I do have these VW Mexican Atlantic model taillights. They didn't come, unfortunately, with anything else, no seals, no nothing. So I'm actually going to reuse the stuff that's currently on the car. My current one is actually broken, so this would be a nice upgrade anyways. So if you guys are looking for a little bit more options on the internet, sometimes you're looking at eBay or something, if you use the type of word Volkswagen Atlantic or Volkswagen Fox in South Africa, it should open up a little bit more of available parts to you. Just a tip, but you're definitely willing to look into that. The years are also slightly different. The South American Volkswagen Fox was sold at the same time. The Mark 1 Volkswagen Fox was sold at the same time as the Mark 1 Golf City Edition. So they were sold at different times. In North America, they were sold from 1980 to 1984 in the Mark 1 platform. And other places in the world, they were sold at different times. Mexico, they were also sold a little bit later as well. So some of the Atlantic stuff is easier to get than it is to get any Mark 1 Jetta stuff from the North American market, because a lot of that stuff will obviously be used or reproduced. So anyways, we're gonna go ahead and throw this on. I also do have some more trim paint. We're gonna trim up some other stuff. I also learned for the very first time, I was today years old, and I realized the heat gun can actually return plastic. I couldn't even tell you guys how many times I have painted stuff with trim paint, and I just learned actually that you could potentially use a heat gun to bring some of that stuff back. So we're gonna try that in today's episode and see how well it works. I'm gonna show you the front bumper, which I've already painted, versus the rear bumper that we're gonna heat gun, and we're gonna see which one we like better. So heading back into the shed here, you can see this Jetta is filthy. It sat here, unfortunately, for a little while, relatively untouched. You can see the front end that we did quite a few episodes back. We flushed up the front bumper, trim painted the bumper, trim painted the grille, and kind of did a budget build on the front end of this car, and it turned out really, really nice. I do like the way this has turned out, but I've always wanted to put a Euro front end on a Mark 1 Jetta. So we're gonna do that today. We're gonna remove this stuff. Like I said before, the rear bumper or the rear end of the car has not yet been addressed. We still need to flush that bumper, as well as I was gonna trim paint that rear bumper, but learning about this heat gun option, we're gonna try that first and see how well that turns out. We're also gonna switch the front end to that Euro and change the rear tail lights to the Atlantic option, and I think that will really help this car, but I am not gonna do any of that until this car gets a little bit of a bath. So let's get to work. All right, so while the Jetta warms up out there, and guys, I can't even explain to you just how hot it is. It is like 42 degrees right now, and it's like lunchtime. That is like 108 degrees, 110 degrees Fahrenheit already. Like, it is hot. I could probably sizzle bacon on that concrete. Even right now, just standing here, I am sweating. So while that warms up, actually, I do want to address this grille. It's a little bit aged, and I would prefer it to be a little bit sharper. So I'm actually gonna trim paint this just to clean it up that little bit. So I'm actually gonna do that and let it dry while we wash the car. And at the same time, I can't really understand why I'm choosing to wash a car in this kind of heat, because I am sweating just standing here. But I can't work on the car in the state it's in. It's just way too filthy, so we'll have to get that done. But like I said, in the meantime, we'll start off by painting up this grille, cleaning it up first, painting it, and then letting it dry while we address the car. Okay, got the second coat done. I'm actually gonna let it dry. It's drying incredibly fast just because it's so warm out. But I'm gonna go ahead and do a third coat just because. But in the meantime, let's go take a look at this car. All right, there we go, looking way better. Honestly, as soon as I wash it, it basically dries up right away, especially the soap. So it took a little bit of time to get it done, but we got it done. Grille is also finished. Let's take a look at that real quick. Got the grill all finished up here. It's looking nice. It's actually pretty much dry, but what I'm going to do actually is put this to the side for now, let it dry an extra little bit longer, and bring in the back of the car into the garage because it's way too hot to work outside. Bring the back of car into the garage and we'll start working on that. Oh man, sometimes it's easy to forget just how good this car is. Look at this thing. Oh, I love the color. Oh, it just works. Anyway, back to the back end. I apologize, but looking at this bumper while washing the car, I realize now that we're not actually going to be able to use the heat gun option that I talked about earlier because somebody at some point has painted this bumper. Hopefully I can pick it up. It's a little bit, you can see that. So it's got a little bit of previous paint. Also, the chrome trim is no longer chrome, it's now white. So the best way to go about this actually, rather than heat gunning it, is to repaint it. I have a Euro bumper that's pretty faded that I'll bring back in here later on, and we'll try that heat gun method. But for now, we're going to go ahead and pull this bumper off. That's why I left the carpet here. We're going to be able to paint it in here and then throw it back on. We're also going to swap out the tail lights. So now we're going to get to work on the back end. Pretty excited about this. While I'm doing this, actually, I'm also going to flush this up a little bit more. Same thing we did on the front. The shock absorbers that hold these rear bumpers in, just like the front. We're going to drill a hole in the bottom. We're going to drain it out and suck it in a little bit. And it'll look much, much better. But here's the before picture. Let's go ahead and throw it in a time lapse. I'm not sweating. You're sweating.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon. They sing on a sleepless night. Try to catch me howling at the moon.
All right, update time. So painted the bumper 2 or 3 coats and 3 coats. Did the little expansion piece as well. Taillights are all bolted on. Really happy with how these turned out. Overall, fitment was okay. Definitely didn't have the same quality of fitment as the originals, but they look nice. They fit decently. You know, the gaskets was kind of a tough fit, but they did fit. When I swapped over the gaskets, the bulb trays are exactly the same, so there's no issue there. But they look fantastic, and I'm really happy with these. So now I'm going to go ahead and throw this bumper back on. I showed it in time lapse, but I also drained the hydraulic fluid out of these struts for the bumpers. I shrunk them down. There now, this bumper should be completely sucked in as much as possible, which will drastically improve the look of the car. So we'll go ahead and throw it back on, and then what we will do is flip the car around and we will do the headlight swap. Let's get to work. So let's take a look at this rear end here. And man, does it ever look good. Look at that. Bumper tuck made a huge difference. You know, for a can of spray paint on the bumpers and tucking it in, what a difference that job makes, both front and back. It just makes the appearance of the car look so much different. These taillights, smoked on top, red on the bottom, really tie in. And I can't tell you how much this car has come around. Like, this car is clearly one of my favorites now, and I can't wait to get this front end done. So let's not waste any more time, let's get to work. All right, so we got the headlights, headlight bezels, grille, all freshly painted, ready to go on. We got the car here, old stuff ready to come off. This should be a pretty simple job, can't be all that complicated. A little bit of finicky with the headlight wiring and that sort of thing, but again, should just be grille off, headlights out, headlights in, a little bit of wiring, grille back on. Let's get to work. All right, there we are. Which do you guys prefer, the Euro version or the US spec version? I'm definitely leaning on the Euro version side. It's been something I've wanted to do since the beginning of ever seeing a Mk1 Jetta from Europe. I thought it's such a cool swap. One day when I owned one, I would definitely get it done. Today is that day. Now, as I said earlier in the episode today, these have already been converted. So I'm actually just gonna pop out this headlight and the clip and the cover, and we're gonna go ahead and throw them onto this one. And the swap process would be very easy. They seal beams on the high beams on the inside. Again, those are just standard. I'm just gonna leave those. But there we go. Let's get these on that. Yes, here we go. Okay, so now since it already had the H4 headlights in it, the adapters were already there. It's really easy stuff to do. Only thing I had to do was wire in the amber lights on each side. That was just quickly, all you had to really do was clip off these little pigtails, which go for these amber markers, and then put some female clips on the end of them and plug them right into these bulbs. These bulbs were, when I ordered this whole front end setup, I was actually missing some clips. I thought I could convert the clips over from the old setup, but unfortunately it didn't work. So I had to just do a little bit of MacGyvering, and I got it to work. They fit in nicely. They're absolutely tight as can be. No issues there. So even though I MacGyvered them, they are basically factory condition. I love it. It looks so good. What I'm gonna do is pull it out. We'll do some cinematics. And the funny thing is, I ordered these headlights all the way from Bosnia to make it look like a Nissan Sentra. It's kind of got the same vibe. All right, let's close up the hood, take it outside, and show you guys the work we did. All right, before we do that, for the test, make sure my wiring worked out. There we go. Hey, look at that. Now let's check high beams. Actually, I'll leave you guys on it. Check the high beams for me. Hey! Looks like that worked. Sweet. Well, we survived what undoubtedly is one of the hottest days of the year. I'm sweating like crazy. I've been sweating all day, but let's take a look at the work we did and be proud of that. All right, guys, I'm filthy. The car looks amazing. It is way too hot. I need to go inside, shower up, and cool off. This is nuts. Okay, till next time, guys, thanks very much for watching. If you don't currently subscribe, I highly recommend that you do, because not every day is quite this hot. So we'll get to work on all of our other projects as well. Till next time, take care.